Hi guys, nice to see you all this morning. Yeah, my name is Leah. I just got back from a 9-month mission trip. Ooh. Got it, okay. I went to 5 different countries. I went to Cambodia for 2 months, and then I was in Thailand for a couple days, and then we went to Honduras for 2 months, then we went to Guatemala for 2 months, and then we just were in Ethiopia for 3 months. Yeah, so pretty long time. So I'm absolutely happy to be back with everyone here. But yeah, so we just got some pictures going on. The first ones are from Cambodia. That country is very, very hot and humid. I had heat rash all over my body for the entire 2 months that I was there. Yeah, I got sick in every country, so that's great. Anyways, thankfully not America as I got back. I would be very sad. Anyways, yeah, so Cambodia was definitely kind of like a culture shock to me because, again, like, I'm literally on the opposite side of the world, and it's just very, very different. A lot of the way that their community is set up is like all very compact, unless you go out into like the villages and stuff, and then it's more spaced out. But yeah, their main religion is Buddhism, and so you'll see right there in that picture that they have like a whole bunch of temples and everything, and basically those things are practically almost like on every corner, but they just go in there, like the monks and everything, or people, and they like pray or meditate or like worship their gods, or like, I don't even entirely know the fullness of that, but yeah, it's pretty crazy. There is definitely a lot of like spiritual warfare that some people on my squad, yeah, I went with like 45 people, I think. But yeah, there is some people who just experience spiritual warfare because there's just like a lot of demonic stuff going on around there. And it was pretty interesting because in front of like almost every single building, there's like a small shrine that they have, and they basically, again, they just like put incense in front of that, or like food offerings and stuff, and they pray and worship, and they just believe that like their gods or whatever like live inside those shrines. And I think there was like a certain holiday too where they were like doing that. It was kind of like the Day of the Dead that they do in Central America or in Mexico. And they like put food offerings and stuff, the favorite things of their ancestors. Otherwise, if they don't, then their ancestors curse them. And I'm just like, oh, this is great. Yeah, that's great. Anyways, yeah, so part of our ministry that we did in Cambodia, we did teaching. And I was teaching at this school called New Hope. And I taught English there, and I was there like literally the entire day because we had morning classes, a break, and then an afternoon class. But I just really, really love those kids. They are so incredibly nice and respectful to you, a little bit opposite of America. But yeah, it was just crazy because we were in like a very, very small classroom. At least the one that I taught in is kind of like the space of like this section of the stage right here to like the front of those seats, kind of like a rectangle, very, very small. And it just has like desks and everything lined up that the students get to sit in. And all they have to bring with them is like one notebook. So they do like all their homework, all their tests, all their lessons, quizzes, everything inside that one notebook because that's all they can afford. And then a pencil. Most of the time it was broken. But yeah, so that's what they had. They also had to wear uniforms to their school. If they didn't have a uniform, they wouldn't be able to attend the school. I find that very, very interesting because that was also something in Central America. If you didn't come to school wearing your uniform, you couldn't go to school. But yeah, so most of the time they'd have students that wouldn't show up again like the next school year because they couldn't afford it. But again, like, it's just crazy to see how much they value their education because for them, that's really their only way out of poverty. Because the school that I was teaching at was in like the more farmland area where they have like rice fields and everything, and they live in like wood shacks. But yeah, that's really their only way out of poverty for them. And so everyone's just like really, really pushing hard to like get an education, make sure that they do well. And then from Cambodia, we headed over to Honduras. We were really high up in the mountains, and that place was like super, super gorgeous, amazing. Very, very chilly because, again, we were up in the mountains and it rained a lot and it was very windy. But as part of our ministry there, we went to this orphanage for special needs adults. And for my entire first month, I was stuck in a room rolling up balls of yarn. Kind of discouraging because, again, like, you guys all help fundraise me so that way I could like go out and do all this cool God stuff. And so in my mind, I was just like, God, like, I'm not really doing anything here. Like, I'm just sitting in a room rolling up balls of yarn. Like, I'm not going out and like living the Christian lifestyle I think we picture most missionaries to be doing. But he quickly like changed my perspective on that and just like really showed me just like, no, you are doing a lot, because the balls of yarn that we were rolling up, because it was in like this huge heap, all tangled up and everything, so it needed to be done. The residents of that place were using that yarn so that way they could like make cool things out of it. So like make little like cup holders or bags or like rugs or something. They would just make like a lot of cool things with that. And then they would go out into like the towns nearby and sell them so that way they could fundraise money to live. Because unfortunately the government stopped funding them. So, and then during my second month, I got more time to like actually spend time with the residents. So we like went around the rooms, because this was during Christmas time, and sang Christmas carols to them and just like really got to know a lot of them. And I also had the chance to do some mural paintings there as well. But yeah, and Honduras too, it was kind of cool but scary at the same time, because there was a lot of political unrest going on at the time. It was like their presidential election, and a president can only run for one term, but in America they can run for two. So their president had already run, but he had snuck in a whole bunch of laws underneath citizens' noses, so he was able to like run for it again. And so a lot of people just did not like him. While the voting process was happening, he was clearly losing, but when he saw that, they shut down all the news reporters, all media, all like television, everything. They shut down all of that for like almost 2 days, I think. And then when it went back on, like, he was winning. And everyone was just like, what the heck? That doesn't make any sense. But yeah, so there was like a lot of riots and protesting going on while we were there. So that was pretty crazy. So we had the chance to like just take a day and just pray over their country for peace and stuff. And then, so that was Honduras. Then we headed over to Guatemala. We were staying in an area called Paramos. It's really close to Antigua. I don't know if you guys know that place or not, but pretty touristy. And they're like really, really close to the volcanoes around them. There's volcanoes like surrounding them everywhere. But yeah, you guys may have not seen on the news recently, or you may have like the volcanoes erupting and stuff, and sadly like a lot of people died because of that too, and a lot of people were affected. Kind of breaks my heart a little bit, because I'm just like, those could be people that we don't know. But yeah, and so as part of my ministry in Guatemala, I was a teacher as well for Grace English School. And I got to teach English, math, science, and social studies to kindergartners. Thankfully, they were only kindergartners, because I can't teach anyone above that. So those kids, again, I think that room was actually smaller than the one that I taught in Cambodia, so maybe cut off like a foot or two at the end of that. And that's the classroom that I was teaching in. But it was just really, really awesome, because a lot of those kids are stuck, again, like also in really bad like family situations. So a lot of them have parents that abuse them verbally or physically, most of the time physically, or like their parents drink a lot of alcohol, and so it's just like really bad. And so I could definitely see that difference in their behavior, because they were definitely a lot more rowdy compared to the kids in Cambodia, just because like that's the only example that they have back at home. And so it was just really great, like being able to show the love of Christ and showing them what like love looks like to them. Yeah, so that was our time in Guatemala. And then we headed over to Ethiopia, which is our last country. That not as hot as you guys expect. It was like their hot weather was like in the high 80s, low 90s. But we also like were entering into their monsoon season, so then it got pretty cold. And since it was like this huge open area and we were also pretty high in altitude, it was pretty chilly, especially at night. But yeah, we stayed at this place called Hope, Ethiopia, and we were located in a village called Harbachulile. A lot of those people there, they make their living off of like farming and all that kind of stuff. So it's very, very poor. And since most of them do farm, they've learned a lot of like bad agriculture, like farming habits, and have like completely just like cleared out the land. So like they've just cut down all their trees, like destroyed all of that because they use it for like houses, or they just clear them out so that way they can like plant crops. Yeah, and because of that, the air pollution has like gotten pretty bad as well because they burn their trash a lot, like in the streets and stuff, and or they just like throw it all in the streets. Yeah, so that place was pretty gross actually. Anytime I would wash my hands, like I'd be out for 5 minutes, come back, wash my hands, and it's just brown, all brown water, because man, you got dirty pretty quick there. But yeah, so Ethiopia, so part of our ministry, we would go out to this one place and we would work on reforestation as one of our projects. And so we just pack like a whole bunch of dirt into like little pods and stuff so that way they could put the seeds in there and start planting them. Yeah, you'll see the pictures soon enough, but yeah, it's just, so they would go out and plant them, so they'd just start planting trees and stuff. And so in that area where we were doing that, there's already like a whole bunch of trees that are like super tall and growing that they planted years ago. And they were saying like in that area alone, since they started doing that, oxygen levels have gone up like 17%. So that's pretty crazy, pretty crucial that like they do that. Plus, it's giving people jobs as well that they need. Yeah, so I really love that. Another part of our ministry was going out to a well that was right outside of where we were staying. And right across from that street, there was this family that, two families, they were like neighbors, but we would go out and visit them a lot. And I just really loved them because the kids were there most of the time. The parents were like hardly ever there because again, they have to provide for their family, so they're usually like out getting food or getting water or like, I don't know, doing their job or something. But yeah, so just seeing like, it was crazy because there was this one little girl, she can't be more than like 6 years old, but she never ever left her little brother's side who's like months old. And she'd always just be like carrying him on her hip. And you might see a picture here coming up soon, but she's just always like carrying him. And like, there would be times where like, we'd see her across the street or something. We're like, hey, like, come over here. And she'd be like, no, I can't. We're just like, come on, it's okay. And she's like, no, my brother, I can't leave him. So yeah, it's pretty crazy to see like, just how like the little kids practically become parents to their younger siblings. Our mom's from Mexico, so she definitely has that experience herself. But I'm the youngest, so I don't. Yeah, so we got to minister to that family a lot as well and just spend so much time with them. I really loved them. And then another part of our ministry at Hope Ethiopia was with the families that lived on the same complex as us. So one of the main things that Hope Ethiopia does is they take like the worst of the worst. So kids, moms, or just like families that are like really bad situations, like they just literally have no food or water. They have practically nothing because they can't make a living, or there's like a dad or husband that is incredibly abusive to them, and so they have nothing at all and they just can't pick themselves back up. So they go out and like bring those families in and they give them like a house to stay in. And So in each house, there's like a certain amount of kids, and in each house, there's also like an adult mom. So sometimes the mom isn't related to any of the kids. Most of the time, the mom was in that house and did have her kids living with her. But yeah, they would just like look after the kids and stuff throughout the day, make sure they're getting fed and like doing their chores and stuff. Yeah, so we also just got to spend so much time with them, and those were definitely some of my hardest goodbyes. I think my heart broke the most when I left Ethiopia because we were there for an extra month, but it's just crazy to see how much like an extra month does concerning like building relationships with everyone. Yeah, and those people are like, man, they love God. Yeah, like the main religion in Ethiopia, I think, is Christian, but they're like Orthodox Christian. And then some of them are like Baptist or whatever, but I'm just like, I don't really care about that. I think the next ones are also Islam, and then the one after that would be like witchcraft. So there's also a lot of spiritual warfare after that as well. One of the kids, her mom was actually into witchcraft a lot, so she'd have to ask for permission to come visit her daughter, and they didn't really like it because they said every time she comes on, like weird things happen. And then that definitely did happen because she visited one time while we were there. And it was just like that night, as soon as my head hit the pillow, I had like crazy anxiety for some reason. I was like, I'm just trying to fall asleep. What the heck? What is going on? But yeah, it was just like my heart was pounding crazy. I couldn't breathe. Those were a rough couple of nights. But yeah, so spiritual warfare is definitely crazy in there because they have Islam and witchcraft. And so they're always constantly just trying to like push Christianity down. But yeah, it's just crazy because like this picture right here, this is one of the guards that like guards the area. He lives in that tiny shack right there with just his bed and like some clothes and stuff. He practically has nothing, but that kid was left right outside, like on the doorstep of like the complex. And so that man, he literally just like, he took him in and he just started taking care of him. Like he started giving him a bath and like started giving him food, water, clothes, and just started caring for the child like his own, even though he had almost nothing himself. And that was like definitely like a humbling moment for me, just like seeing that from a man. Yeah, so that is pretty much what we got to do. Oh yeah, I got to do a mural painting in Ethiopia as well, just getting to practice that gift of like worship and prophetic art as well. Yeah, so that's my time in Ethiopia, and then I came back home. Yeah, you can clap if you want to. Yeah, so that is like...
Wait, can you show that one picture from Guatemala?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Tom, can you go back to that picture from Guatemala? Ever?
Wee!
Yeah. Might be a faster way to do it.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. So that was the only picture I could get from that I took in Guatemala. I'm so sorry. I took like practically no pictures in Guatemala. But yeah, this is a painting that I did. It's actually like really, really small because I had to accommodate for travel. But yeah, so that was just like one day I was super inspired and God was just like giving me a picture, like an idea of what he wanted me to paint. And this is what I got. And so basically so we have like the woman that is being held by Christ, and she represents the body, the church, the bride. And then we have Christ through his resurrection. Because of that, he has defeated death. And that's why we have the sword slicing right through death's hand. And I kind of like it because the sword is shaped like a cross. And then we have like a little victory flag going through. Yeah, so he is saving her from that. And if you notice too, like her dress fades from white to red, just because that represents that like we're cleansed and we're made pure in Christ's blood. Yeah. So that was one of the paintings that I got to do. Yep. Cool. All right. Yeah. So that's all the ministry stuff, all like the cool adventures and everything that we did. But the past 9 months have also been incredibly insane because I have gone through so much self-discovery, just discovering like who I am in Christ and stuff, and just like growth, that it honestly kind of freaks me out a little bit. Especially in Ethiopia, we didn't have any Wi-Fi for 3 months, nothing like that. We were out in the bush, so it's just like I had a lot of God time. But yeah, like at the end of that, I was like, who is this? I don't even know, in a good way. But yeah, so there's like 3 major things that I want to talk about with you guys that I grew in, or that like I discovered, that I want to share with you guys about. The first one being hope. So at the beginning of our race at launch, before we headed over to Cambodia, the World Race staff, they prayed over every single racer, and they asked God for a certain word for each racer that he wants us to grow in, and that he like wants to pour into us for. And so when I got my key, I got the word hope. And I was like, kind of cliche, you know, hope is such a, I don't know, it's just something that's like gets thrown around a lot. But I was also a little happy because I was like, oh yeah, I always said like I want to spread a message of hope to people in the future, and like that's why I'm doing this race. Like that's what I want to do. And so yeah, I thought I knew what it was, and go through Cambodia, going through Honduras to the end of Honduras, like literally almost at the end. So this is like 4 months in. On New Year's Eve, that night, our ministry host, David, started talking to us. He just did like a short sermon, something like that. And he was talking about walking into 2018 and the rest of your life with hope. And he just starts off with a simple definition of hope. And he says, hope is a confident expectation of good to come. And at that moment, I was just like, what? How have I never heard this definition in my life before? Like, why have I not gone out to actually like seek that definition? Because it rocked me at that moment. I was just like, I don't even know what hope is. Whenever I talk about hope, I'm not confident. I'm not expecting good to come. I'm just like, it's most likely not going to come in my head. And so I was just like, what the heck? I don't even know God, like, I don't know what this is. Help me out here. You want to pour this thing into, this gift into me, but how can I like give that to other people if I don't even know what it is? If I don't know what its purpose in my life is. So then we went into Guatemala, and we had like 5 days of debrief there. So it was just a time for us to like rest, relax, get poured into by our leaders. And I just started researching what hope was, and like what other people were saying about it, like biblically too. I was just like, wow, I've missed so much, man. Like this is a pretty crazy gift, because it's one of like the top 3 spiritual gifts, right? That like he talks about: faith, hope, and love. I was just like, obviously it must be at least a little bit important if God like puts it in those top 3. But like, why do we never hear about it? I never hear people talking about it. And so also like with that, after like actually learning about what it is and seeing like where its purpose was in my life, God was just like, all right, so when you go back home, I want you to spread a message of hope to the hopeless. Yeah, and so that was pretty crazy, because that is absolutely what I'm planning on doing, because we're so like distracted by everything in America that we become numb to a lot of things. And especially for people who like don't believe in Christ, they don't have that hope. So a lot of people become hopeless. That's why like a lot of depression, anxiety is starting to like get a hold on our generation, and you're seeing like suicide rates and stuff going up. And I'm just like, this is not okay. That's the purpose that God has given me. I need to go out and spread that message of hope to the hopeless. Yeah, so that's hope. And then towards the end of our time in Guatemala, God was getting me ready to teach me another crazy thing, and that's identity. So I guess I was going through like some self-identity issues or something. There were like some things that I was struggling with that I struggled with back at home in my past that like I wanted to overcome while I was on this trip. And I don't know, like I think I just didn't fully believe that I was like a child of God, and like I didn't fully understand or grasp that. Like I didn't take that head knowledge and make it heart knowledge. And so there was one night I decided I just wanted to go out and like have some good Jesus time, just like walk with him and stuff. And I go outside into the field. It's pretty huge. It's like a soccer field type of size type of thing. But it's like nighttime, so you can see like the huge sky and like all the stars and everything. So beautiful, so gorgeous. I just started walking, put in my earphones, like started listening to worship music. And I'm like walking and everything, going at a pretty quick pace. And then I just feel like God say to me, Leah, you need to ask me a question. And I'm like, God, no, I don't. I don't need to ask you, like, what do I need to ask you that you don't already know? And he just says again, Leah, you need to ask me a question. And you already know what that question is. And like, I could just feel like, I don't know, just like something in my throat. I was like, oh, okay. That's the hard things. So I kind of slow down on my pace and I just like look up at the sky and I'm just like, okay, God, who are you? And as soon as I ask that question, God brings me back to a memory of the night that I was saved. That night, there was a whole bunch of people like circled around me, praying over me and like prophesying over me. And the last thing that one of the ladies says, she says, it's almost as if God is saying to you, if you could just look in the mirror and see what I see, you'd be pleased. And since I heard that, up until that very moment in Guatemala, I had always just assumed, like always just thought, I was like, oh, physical appearance, yeah, like, of course, I got to tell myself I'm beautiful every day, whatever. But no, that's not what he was trying to say at all. So that memory popped in my head, and as soon as that one ended, I just like completely just like stopped walking, and I started tearing up because it was like I saw this huge mirror just like appear in front of me. And when I looked into that mirror, I could see God, and everything that he was, I could see him. And he was just saying, I am great. I am loving, I am faithful, I am bold, I am fearless, I am powerful. And just like the list went on, and he was just continuously like, it was almost as if I could hear it in my head. It was just like, I am. And I just like started like bawling my eyes out because I was like, oh, this is just like so much. This is so much for me to handle right now. And then suddenly it's just like, when I looked into the mirror again, that image of God changed. And then I saw myself. I saw the reflection of myself in that mirror. And he just said to me, like, Leah, you are who I say you are. You are who I made you to be because you're made in my image. And it just like completely rocks me because it just finally clicked. I was like, that thing that lady told me about 3 years ago finally clicked in my brain. And I was just like, that again, like the head knowledge finally became heart knowledge. Like I truly believed that. And I was just like, I am a child of God. Like I can't, like, I don't have to live in fear or doubt of those things that I struggled with back at home because God can just break me free from all of that right now. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. And so, there was actually a situation like a couple days after that had happened where I was like taking a nap and then the enemy tried to like attack me in my sleep, like in my dreams and stuff. Again, just trying to attack my image, my identity, who I truly was by just trying to put the lies in my head and just like, that's not who you are. Like, you're still afraid of these things. You still think you're going to fall back into those old temptations, old habits, old sins. But it was just like, God just like completely just like came in and just like, no, she's mine. And I was like, I'm his. So that was the second thing that I learned. And then fast forward over to Ethiopia. Since that place is very, very poor, it was the poorest country that we visited. It's very, very easy to see like all the bad things. And so God was just starting to teach me, Leah, you need to see me in everyone and everything. And I was like, oh, okay, how do I do that? Because I'm just like, there's, whenever I went out into like the town or like the village or markets or anything like that, there were definitely times where I was just like, it's a little sketchy here. I don't feel very safe. And so it's easy to just assume like the worst about everyone around you, just so that way you can make sure that like you're safe and whatnot. It's very, very easy to do that. But God was just teaching me, he's like, no, Leah, you need to see me in everyone and everything. And so there would just be like some of these crazy God moments, like with some of the families that I got to visit by the well, like I'd be like hugging the kids goodbye, whatever, and you know they're like all dirty and like their clothes is falling apart and stuff. They kind of stink a little sometimes, or they have lice or something. But it's just like I don't care about that. I just like want to love on this kid, and so like I'll give them a hug. I'll like let go. And there's like one more I was doing that, but it was like a very little kid. He's probably like a year old or something, a year and a half. But I just like bent down, gave him a hug, let go, and then I just like put my hand softly on his cheek. And then he just like stopped too, and then he just gently put his hand on my cheek. So just like this moment where we were just like staring into each other's eyes like so deeply. And I just remembered right now actually, like, and in the Bible, whenever it says like to know someone, it's a very, very intimate thing. And so it was just like, wow, I know this kid, like I know him, because it was just like I could just see like into his heart and stuff, and I could see like that God has so much for that little boy. And then same thing for like a lot of kids in the streets or like adults and stuff, like they don't think that they're great or anything like that, but just like when you look at them, you can see that God has so much greatness in store for them. And so there was a one day where I decided to go outside and just sit in the grass and like write something. I was like, I just want to write something down right now, not really expecting anything, listening to my worship music again, and then the Holy Spirit just like starts like pouring into me and like inspiring me what he wants to write. So I'm gonna go ahead and read that for you guys. But I want you guys to all close your eyes while I read this. So you guys can go ahead and close your eyes right now. And just imagine like this is God speaking to you right now, because he is. All right. Okay. Tell me, what do you see? Tell me what you see when you walk through the village streets. Do you notice all the eyes glaring at you? You may be too distracted with all the commotion of people yelling "Ferengi" to even look into the eyes of the child standing right before you. It's easy to pay attention to the horrid view that smacks you in the face as you try to avert your eyes from witnessing these events. You may even be wishing not to be here because it seems like too much for you to handle. In this drawn-out world that we've been taught to see as black and white, be still and look at the beauty in between the lines. Tell me, what do you see now? Do you notice the cream-colored butterfly that floats above the tall yellow grass? Do you feel the warm breeze brush against your face in the radiant sun? Do you hear the pure, innocent laughter coming from the children across the street? Well, I'll show you something even more beautiful. Look over there. See that man by the shack? You may see old tattered clothes, cheap old shoes falling apart, and the abundance of wrinkles that frame his face. Be still. I tell you, there's a story within those eyes. I encourage you, look again into the window of the soul. Now what do you see? Do you see this man the way I see him? Can you see the joy and peace that resides inside his soul? Do you see the light that shines through the darkness inside of this man? You see, this world is broken, and there are many tragic things, but look at the beauty in between, for its goodness easily outweighs the bad. So, when the shattered mirror that the world has handed to us since we were born demands for all your attention to be focused on it, be still and look again. Do you see me? You guys can open your eyes now. So that was very, very powerful for me. Because when I wrote that, I was not expecting that at all. That's something that I could not have written on my own. It was all from the Holy Spirit. Like, that was all him. And I was just, again, another moment, I was crying. Just because when things get hard, it's hard. It's hard to see those things. It's hard to experience those things. And it's hard to know those things, that people are going through all of these terrible situations. And at times you just really feel like you can't do much, or it's just too much for you to handle and you just want to go back home. There were definitely times where I felt like that. I was just like, I just want to go back home. I just want to lay in my bed and like be all curled up and not talk to anyone. I just want to like watch like a Netflix movie or something, maybe eat a bowl of ice cream, who knows. But like after that, I definitely started like seeing things differently. Like I can't really explain it to you guys right now, but it's just like whenever I go out, like either situations or people, it just seems different to me. I don't know why, but it's just like God has given me his eyes. And some girl had actually written this in a note for me in Cambodia, but she wrote, God is telling you, you need to ask for his eyes, specifically his eyes for people. And so, so it's just like things just started changing so much there. It was like I could see God in people, just like looking into their eyes, just seeing like how deep their souls are and just seeing them for who God sees them as. And that is just so, so important, because I can't look at people the same anymore. It doesn't matter what the person looks like or what they've done. I can't look at them as their past or what the enemy has labeled them as. I have to see them as God sees them. And so, my question to you guys is, you guys also know the truth. You guys can also see people the way God sees them. You guys can see see things the way God sees them. And so, are you guys gonna turn your heads and look away and ignore it? Are you guys actually gonna look at that situation and be like, I know what's going on here, I know the truth, and I have hope. I can see this becoming something amazing. Are you guys gonna do that? Good. Because that was the question I was faced with at my final days in Ethiopia before we came back home. We had another debrief. Again, they were giving us sermons and stuff, pouring into us. But that was the question that I was faced with. It was like, what are you going to do when you go home? Because there's some people in this room that aren't going to do it. And that was a hard bite to chew on. Because I was just like, you just assume that like all these people with me have gone on this amazing thing. But it just goes to show, like, it doesn't matter where you are or like what situation you've been in. You can still deny Christ. Judas did that himself. And he lived with Jesus for, 3 years? Yeah, that's crazy. But I thought about that. I was like, man, I do not want to be one of those people when I go back home. I don't want to go through this incredibly life-changing experience, go back home, and do nothing with it. That is not what I'm called to do. And one of the other sermons that they gave us was, of course, he was talking about Paul and how he's like this before his final moments of life, and he's writing a letter and he's saying like, I ran the race well. I kept the faith. And so they did like this huge visual representation of just like literally, we were like in this really long meeting room, and so it was just a huge blank wall in front of us. And he did, the guy who was talking to us, he did like sticky notes as like a timeline on the wall. And so it was like the day from when he was born to that very day that he was talking to us. And again, he was just showing, he was like, it doesn't matter, like, again, that you've gone on this crazy trip, whatever. Some of you are going to choose to stop like this very day. Some of you are going to choose to stop a couple years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Or you can do something like Paul and live like Christ told you to and run to the very end of the race. And you kept the faith and you did it well. And that was something that hit me so hard, because I was just like, that is what I want. And I got so excited because I was just like, I was looking at that sticky note of that day's date, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, it's a blank slate in front of that. that is a whole, all of that belongs to God. And he can do literally anything he wants with that. And that's going to be my life. I mean, I don't know what that future is going to hold for me, but I'm excited, a little terrified, but excited. Because I'm just like, again, with God, all things are possible. But if I do it on my own, if I decide to, at one point in my life, to just start taking hold of the reins or the wheel by myself, then I'm just like, did I really run the race well? I could even stop the day before my final breath, but I don't want to. I want to go to the literal very end. Yeah, and so that's some of the crazy stuff I learned. Yep.